Hi everyone and welcome to Artist Takeover with me, Carrie Backhouse. I'm standing in today for Nisa Khan, who's not very well. So sending our love to Nisa, and hopefully she'll be able to do it in the future. So you're stuck with me, guys, I'm sorry, but hopefully it'll be an interesting session. Hopefully you'll hear a lot about the work I do, but also about funding opportunities, which I know artists always prick up their ears when they hear that funding opportunity sound. So that I'll put lots of links on, and here's my sign. I had to write backwards because the screen turns it round, but I'm going to get rid of my sign. There we go. So hello and welcome to another of our artist takeover sessions. It's great to be here, despite it's a strange old time, isn't it? We're all stuck at home. For some artists who are more introverted, that might be a great time to get work done, to work in their home studios and to do all sorts of work. But for me, who's an extrovert, it's a nightmare to just be stuck in with my husband, bless him. I miss seeing all you lovely people at Artcore. For those who don't know it, I'm the programme coordinator along with Iona Davies at Artcore, as well as being an artist. So I've just moved from Sheffield. I moved to the delightful Long Eaton, and I travel into Derby for the last half a year. I got married to a vicar, so life has changed quite a lot. But I'm not. Hi Alison, I hope you're well. We really enjoyed your artist takeover yesterday, Alison. Yeah, I've got a lot to live up to. But I thought I'd talk a little bit about sort of my journey up to this point, up to working at Artcore, and kind of the journey forward in terms of my artistic practice that I do alongside my role at Artcore. Ironically, we had an exhibition planned for Friday at St. Peter's Church as part of Beauty and Brokenness as the Good Friday service. So frustratingly, that's kind of on hold at the moment, and that exhibition is part of a new collective that I've formed with Janet McIntyre called the Kintsugi Collective. Oh, hi Rachita, lovely to see you. So yes, but my journey started in Liverpool. You might hear a little bit of a twang in my accent. So my accent is a mix of Yorkshire, because I lived in Sheffield for 17 years, but predominantly St Helens and Liverpool. So I'm a weird crossbreed of all different northern cities and towns. And now I'm in Derbyshire, where they also have a funny accent. A very lovely accent too. I want to talk a little bit about my journey. So yeah, being born in Anfield in Liverpool, but schooled in St Helens. I went to college kind of in between St Helens and Liverpool, and that was when I chose to do A-levels in graphic design and textiles. I've always been interested in the mix of mediums, so I've always been interested in what happens if you use paper with fabric, with metalwork, kind of this amazing mix of materials to convey a message. So I started doing A-levels in art, but ended up going to Sheffield to do psychology, which seems a little bit of a curveball, but it has fed in actually into a lot of the work that I've done over the years. So although I started sort of predominantly doing psychology at uni, I worked as an artist alongside my degree, and then that whole kind of psychodynamic approach with an arts and art therapy, although I didn't train in art therapy, but looking at how to use art to convey something that's something about mental health or like psychosis and all of that, or dementia is fundamentally what I've been focusing on for the last sort of 13 years. But it sparked my interest in how can we use artistic methods to convey something that is intangible. How do we use how can we convey something that we talk about but you can't really pinpoint or see that. So I after uni I got a studio at Bank Street Arts that is no longer there, unfortunately. Some of you might have heard of Bank Street, and it's in Sheffield city centre, just off the main main drag of the cathedral. And I got a little studio there where I could start to work on different exhibitions and projects. Alongside my work in a care home. So I did activities in a care home. And I think my friends used to think I was mad. They were also like, why are you working in a care home when your passion's art? And I couldn't explain why at the time. I think my passion for working with people has really fed in to my creative artwork. So I think it was a good kind of fought time over those 9 years I worked with older people, particularly with dementia. And sort of in the later years of that work, my artwork that I predominantly kept separate, I did metalworking and textiles, there started to be an intersect there. And as today I reflected on that journey, I started to see that intersection of probably about 8 years ago. A lot of my work started to overlap, and it began with my work. I did some memory cushions work and textiles to do with the memories of people with dementia. So I had a route through some of my stuff. This was an exhibition that we did, and this was one of the how we record into fabric and textiles, some of the things. It was called Beauty in the Little Things, and it was the little things that made a massive difference to people's day. This one was called Sitting in the Sun, and this was Ethel, who's no longer with us. Ethel's favourite thing to do was to sit in the sun, and that gave her immense pleasure, despite the fact of her living with dementia. She was still able to appreciate and value those important moments, those joy moments where she didn't have to be anything or do anything. And another one was a lady called Carol, again, who's no longer with us, and her favourite thing was to arrange flowers. So we did some work together, and I guess that was the participatory art side of what I do. I've done a lot of delivery with people and work together. But I've also got the side of me that not only wants to do that participatory side, but also wants to do contemporary work that's sort of inspired by what I've learned from people. So I had the opportunity in 2015 to do a Winston Churchill Travelling Fellowship, and I took this teapot. My maiden name was Twist, and it says storytelling with a twist. So I made this teapot, and I took it round the world with me. The fellowship enabled me to be funded to travel around Europe and then to Brazil as a contrast, to find out how artists engaged with work in care home settings, which had been what I'd been doing for predominantly 9 years of work. So I took my teapot and I wrapped it up very well, because as you can hear, it's a pot teapot. So I wrapped it well, took that round with me and interviewed hundreds of artists. I wanted to know, was the work that I was doing, was that something that was happening already over the care homes and across the world, or was that something that was quite specific? I knew a lot of reminiscence work had been happening, but I hadn't understood if there was more work going on. And on my travels with the fellowship, which I'll put a link to because that's an amazing funding, it's an opportunity. So when Winston Churchill died over 50 years ago now, have I got a picture of him to pull out? Oh, there we go. I feel like we need a picture of him while I'm talking about him. They gave us a lovely book to study. So when Winston Churchill died 50 years ago, money was put into a fund to enable people to travel and to do projects that would, travel to learn and return to inspire. So we went across the whole, everyone who's funded on the fellowship travels across the whole world, finds out best practice, looks at amazing projects that are going on, and then brings the learning back to the UK in order to, I'll pop him on the floor, sorry Winston, there you go. In order to bring back the best of the findings and to inspire people in the UK. And they fund over 100 people a year. My particular fund was part funded by the Barring Foundation as well. And funnily enough, Artcore are also doing some funding from the Barring Foundation with their creative living projects, which I thought was a lovely kind of, I'll just put my work on the floor, lovely link for when I came and worked with Artcore. So the Barring Foundation part funded, and some of the different fellowships there's education, engineering, policing, arts, it funds so many different projects. So I do inspire you if you are an artist. It was probably a turning point for me in my career. Although I'd done exhibitions up to 2015, it helped me to step up in terms of professionality, and also opened up my mind to what is possible. It gave me the confidence to step out in my professional work. So I did the fellowship, and then I went on to do some work designing resources with Twinkle, which is an online education resource provider. A lot of you who've got children might have seen their work, who you might actually be using their resources now. I designed an older people's resource to support care homes, and also I helped to set up a storytelling project with older people in care homes based on a method of Montessori storytelling. And the Church of England funded that, as well as Sheffield Diocese. So although those works weren't exhibitions, all the learnings and everything that I've been learning over those years has fed into that, and I was able to really put my heart and soul into it. But my passion has always been as well working at my studio. So I'd moved from Bank Street Arts, and we moved to the Nichols building, which used to be an antique centre. And then when that all changed around, I managed to share a studio with 3 friends at Yorkshire Art Space. So I have a studio still in Sheffield called Exchange Place, if anyone's heard of that. And I share with 2 jewellers and a painter. And I'll put a link to that because their work is very interesting as well. And over that time, I started to think a bit bigger about the projects that I was doing. I had the opportunity to display some work at the White Cloth Gallery in Leeds as part of a well-made exhibition about memory. And then I did a set of work, and I've just been looking through my pictures, and the final pictures are massive. I got a photographer to help me take the photos, and then I'll put a link to the photos. But sadly, this week, my friend Dorothy, who was the model for the photos, has passed away. And I was very upset to hear. And she was not, I think she must have been 94, and Dorothy Beeley, and she was an amazing lady. And she was game for anything, and I roped her into doing some modelling for me for some of my exhibition pieces, and she'd always be up for the challenge. She'd always have a go, and I just think what an amazing age to get to. But I found some of the pictures of the work that I produced. So this is part of the Dementia Necklace Series. And I worked with Dorothy and a photographer called Tim Brown, and we did some work where I designed 3 different necklaces. I'll put a picture of her modelling them, but if you can see the 3 different mediums that I've used. One is fabric and wire, one is paper, and one is metal. And we took a picture of Dorothy wearing these 3 different necklaces, and they look quite different. And we used the photos to explore what dementia is. It's this word that we use to explain different types of dementia. People sort of think of it's got a lot of negative connotations, but my idea was to explore that theme and to explore what it means to have dementia. Does that mean people say it's the end of the world? But my experience working with people with dementia was actually that it unlocks a whole level of creativity in people that they didn't know that they had. It can also uninhibit people from things that they might have been bogged down in real life from. That's not to underplay the difficulty that dementia plays in people's life, but it also has this element of that frees people. So when people, it was a challenge really, the dementia necklaces. I wanted to say actually dementia isn't one thing, it's lots of different things. Yes, it's something that is there, like a necklace, it's there. Yes, and when you look at someone, you might, on some days, they might be having a really bad day with it, and it might look spiky. That person might feel frustrated and angry and be feeling aggressive because of that. But on other days, it can be lighter and not burdensome, and they can be playful and engage in a creative way. And on other days, you know, it is a bigger thing that is noticeable for people, but it's not their identity. It's something it's there, but it's not who that person is. That person is underneath. You could just see Dorothy's chin there, but I'll put a picture of the proper pictures on. So I think that really helped me to step up in terms of thinking, okay, how can I use my skills in craft and art to really explore things that society really doesn't like. So I've got some notes on my other computer, so I'm just leaning over. And then that gave me an opportunity also to put together a bank of resources. I realised I didn't want to just be a champion of one charity or one cause. I think often it's easy to get really passionate about one thing, and I'm passionate about people who are classed as being disabled actually having an accessible space that they can engage with. Not just for people with dementia. I think if we get it right for people with dementia, it's often right for a lot of other people. So that led me on to put on an arts festival called Sheffeel Arts Festival, and that was 2 years ago, and that was, I think it was next week 2 years ago, so it's quite apt that I'm getting to do this talk. And Sheffeel gave me the real opportunity to explore the life of James Montgomery. For those who might know me, they'll know that I'm engaged with the Montgomery Theatre, and I have a handling collection that I've put there, a creative handling collection of items for people who work with loved ones with dementia or run cafes. They can go and they can borrow one of the big boxes of lots of different objects to get prompt conversations. So some of them are the classic reminiscent stuff of like cooking and rationing and wartime, but some of them for people who are younger living with dementia are on kind of 1960s music, and I've put a record player in there and loads of records. It's quite playful. And I've just had some funding from Sheffield City Council to promote that. And also I worked with a charity called Playlist for Life, who are based in Glasgow, and run by Sally Magnuson, whose dad you might have heard of, Magnus Magnuson, who used to present Mastermind, and his wife had dementia, and Sally saw the power of music to engage with her mum and set up that charity. I'm very passionate about that as well. But when I got to design Sheffield, which was a festival, I wanted to have a range of events. I wanted to bring artists together to celebrate creating an ecology of hope, which was a phrase that I heard from Murray Watts, who's a BBC writer, and a friend who lives up in Freswick Castle. I've got quite a lot of friends who are wonderfully eccentric, and he bought the castle in Wick and turned it into the Wayfarer Trust that I'm a part of. And Murray talks about, and I think it was a phrase used by I think it was a rabbi. I need to check this, but a phrase about creating an ecology of hope, about creating spaces with people that you're with that are hopeful and encourage people to flourish, especially as artists. We have the ability to create spaces that are thought-provoking and meaningful. And my background as a Christian as well, it links with that as well as people who believe in hope. And I think at the moment it's particularly apt with everything that's going on. So 2 years ago I put on a festival, and we did creative tours of the city. We had a night in the theatre. We also had this exhibition where we invited people of faith and non-faith backgrounds to come together on the theme of creating an ecology of hope, and did an exhibition that people could walk around in Sheffield Cathedral and reflect on what it means to be hopeful. And it was also a place, we had a place there for people who felt broken. There was places of reflection in that. And I'll put links so you can all see the different things that went on there. So that brings me to here. So also I was very honoured to receive in 2019 the Dementia Care Champion Award for all my artistic sort of endeavours. I felt it was more of an award for being really good at eating cake and sitting and having a cup of tea with people who were living with dementia. So I felt a little bit of a fraud, I think, like anyone does who gets an award. But it was a real honour to get that. So that brings me to now, really. And so I mentioned at the beginning setting up the Kintsugi Collective with Janet McIntyre, and that's a group that explores this theme of hope again, and also we're getting together to look at what it means to have hope, particularly from that Christian viewpoint of, okay, if we're created in the image of God, what does it mean to then create? So exploring that theme, kind of unpacking that, and trying to work out how can hope be weaved into the work that we do creatively, but still have work that's still relevant and not too kitschy, not kitschy Christian work, but actually has a voice that is relevant, and especially now with the corona situation. So I think that is all from me. I think I've managed to talk for 24 minutes, so sorry everyone. You're used to me presenting motivational mornings, so but thank you for the opportunity again to do this artist takeover. If you have any questions, just type a message, and I'll put some links on so you can hear about the different funding as well. And have a good evening everyone. And tomorrow we've got Emily Hett, who is going to, all her work's about joy. It's definitely a week of hope and joy, and she's got some really amazing installation work that she's done. So I'm really excited to see that. So tune in at 4 tomorrow. Thanks.